Maryland's future meeting, and we do want to thank everyone who was able to register and join our meeting, and I'm sure we'll be welcoming others as we move through our meeting tonight. I do want to tell you that we'll be recording this meeting, and I'll be reminding you that as we move through. So if we could advance our slide, Mr. Cook or Dr. Cook, please. Thank you. So as you can see on the slide, we have our tonight's agenda. And welcome, I am the Blueprint Coordinator. My name is Dee Shorts. And along with being the Blueprint Coordinator, I'm also the Chief Academic Officer, one of the Chief Academic Officers for Worcester County Public Schools for pre-K to grades 8. And tonight, again, I want to thank you for joining us. We are going to take a deep dive into the blueprint for Maryland's future. And I'm not sure the level of understanding around the blueprint, but there are 5 pillars. And we are going to look into pillars 1 to 5 tonight. And as you can see by the first screen here, we have 5 different presenters that are going to walk us through these 5 pillars tonight. I am not only the Blueprint Coordinator, which means that I oversee the entire blueprint, but we have different chief academic officers and different people throughout the organization who have been charged with organizing and manning the different pillars throughout this endeavor that we've taken on through the blueprint. So you'll be hearing more from Dr. Dwayne Aff, who is our Chief Operations and Human Relations Officer. He is in charge of Pillar 2 this evening. Dr. Annette Wallace, who is in charge of Pillar 3. She is our Chief Safety and Academic Officer for grades 9 to 12. We have Pillar 4. The lead for that is Coordinator of School Health Services, Lauren Williams, and Pillar 5 is our Chief Financial Officer, Vince Tolbert. And so you'll be hearing from all of those pillar leads tonight to help us walk through the blueprint for Maryland's future. And then at the very end, we're going to do some wrap up and ask for your feedback tonight. So if we move on to our next slide, please. Again, just a friendly reminder, we're going to go over the protocol for our meeting tonight. This Zoom meeting is going to be recorded, and at the end of tonight, we are going to post this recording on our website, which is listed here. And we have a dedicated blueprint page, which you'll find other resources along with this. This Zoom recording will be listed. And just a reminder, if you haven't already noticed, you're going to automatically be muted as you enter. You might have noticed also as you clicked on the Zoom link tonight, we did ask you to register for this presentation. The reason we did that is we really wanted to track attendance tonight. Everything that we do for the blueprint, we like to track attendance so that we can let MSDE and the AIB know who has been with us for the different presentations. They do like to know who has been part of our presentations, and we do like to record that for them. So thank you for registering. And it's very, very important that if you plan to provide feedback, which we would love that you scan that QR code, or if you're more of a person that you like to copy the forms link that you see on the screen, you can do that. But probably the easiest thing to do would be to scan that QR code right now and plan to provide feedback for us. That will also be on our www Worcester page also, and we ask that all feedback be in to us by Tuesday, March 14th. So again, we'll be asking that by Tuesday, March 14th around our presentation this evening. So hopefully you have time to either scan that or grab that form by now. So we'll go ahead and advance. So you may ask, why did Maryland move on to Maryland's, the blueprint for Maryland's future? And this actually, Maryland's blueprint for the future started back prior to COVID. The governor and the legislator asked someone named Britt Kerwin to do some research around best practices around the world, how we could move Maryland's school system forward. And he did just that. He went out and did a lot of research, he and a panel, and went back and made some recommendations to the governor and to the legislature around what could we do in Maryland to move our school system forward. And that the Kerwin Commission is what it was called at that time, made recommendations, and that's what came to known, or that's what turned into the blueprint for Maryland's future. And sometimes we just call it the blueprint. You might just know it now as the blueprint. And now it is a set of policies. It's become legislation, and it is what has now shaped what we know as the blueprint, and what has now been known to us and has moved into 5 pillars. So if we move into the next slide, we will see these 5 pillars all boiled down from what Britt Kerwin recommended to the legislator and the governor around the best practices to move Maryland's school system forward. And it looks rather simple. They're around early childhood. They're around high quality and diverse teachers and leaders. They're around college and career readiness pathways, including CTE. They're around resources to ensure every child or every student succeeds. And they're around governance and accountability. And again, it might look rather simple that this is that these best practices has gone into 5 different areas, but really there's a lot of complexities, a lot of intricacies that have gone into each of these, which now have been called pillars. And that is really what we're going to dive into. So years and years of planning. And again, during this time, during Britt Kerwin's time, making these recommendations to Maryland and the blueprint for Maryland's future developing, we had COVID kind of impact all of us, and it slowed down some of the work. But these 5 areas surfaced, and the work went into these 5 pillars is what we call it. So that's really going to be our work tonight, talking to you about what these 5 pillars entail. But before we dive into that work, we wanted to share with you actually the timeline now for this work, which has really, again, I hate to keep bringing up COVID and what happened in 2019, but it has really changed the timeline that Maryland has been under now. So this timeline started really for us in December. The AIB has adopted an implementation plan with success criteria. So the AIB is really the Accountability and Implementation Board. So this is really the first time Maryland State Department of Education, which is MSDE, I'm going to be using some acronyms here, has really had a governing board that is above them, and that board is called the AIB, again, the Accountability and Implementation Board. And that board really works with MSDE, but is kind of a board that MSDE reports to now around the blueprint for Maryland's future. And again, this is a bit unique around our school system. And so the AIB got a system, a plan that was written by MSDE, and the AIB adopted that plan with success criteria in December of 2022. And the pillar leads and the pillar teams have been working on that plan, which will be due on March 14th. Well, actually, it'll be due March 15th. We'll get all that feedback, which is what we're gathering from you guys, from all of you that have been gracious enough to join our call tonight. It'll be due on March 15th. So we're gathering input around that plan, but we've had lots of work going on since December of 2022, working on that plan and getting feedback from stakeholder groups. So we'll explain a little bit more about that as we go along, but we've been working on that plan for about 3 months now and writing that plan, and that will be due to MSDE on March 15th. After it goes in on March 15th, the AIB will also review that plan at some point and give us feedback. In July of 2023, you also see that the LEAs will develop a CCR program of studies and post CCR pathways. That is part of Pillar 3, and I know that Dr. Wallace is in charge of Pillar 3, and she will talk a little bit about CCR pathways and CCR programs. But at that point, we have to have that part of our plan very solid and developed so that we know exactly how our students are going to become and CCR developed, and CCR pathways will be developed by July 2023, and that will be in our plan. By September 2023, this is an interesting part. I know many of you have been following our MCAP scores that have been released recently, and I know just today we had a press release SSRs, which are another way that the school systems are rated in Maryland. This MDCCR independent research study is saying that by September 2023, Maryland has to, through the blueprint, they have to determine whether or not the MCAP will be still an assessment that we can use to determine whether our kids or whether our students are CCR ready. So there may be other assessments that we can use. Right now in ELA, we can only use MCAP. And in math, we can also use another assessment at this time, which is the SAT in math and CCR. So according to the blueprint, we can use those 2 in math and only 1 in reading. So there's something called an empirical study right now that is through the blueprint that we are doing. And by September 2023, we will have that study done. So that is part of our timeline. By July 2024, and Dr. App, this is part of Pillar 2, and he may discuss this a little bit with you this evening. By July 2024, the LEAs will have to implement a career ladder, and many of you have probably heard a little bit about the fact that the starting salary for teachers will be increased by July 2026. So part of that work will be part of that career ladder and different avenues for teachers to arrive by July 2026 at that starting salary of $60,000. So there's lots of work going on that really started much earlier than December 2022, but we just wanted to share with you overall a layout of what we've been working on and how it's going to move forward. And we will circle back to that March 15th, 2023 date later on in the presentation. All right, and we are circling back to our pillars again. So as we stated earlier, all of the work that Britt Kerwin did to end up moving into the blueprint for Maryland's future ended up being moved into pillars, those 5 pillars again we're seeing. And we just wanted to share with you a little bit about how Worcester County Public Schools ended up shaping those pillars. And I've already alluded a bit to how we ended up tackling the work that came out in December of 2022 around the implementation plans that the AIB and MSDE gave us. So those implementation plans, which will be done on March 15th and turned in to the AIB and MSDE, really address how we are going to focus on the work inside the Maryland blueprint, the blueprint for Maryland's future for the next 2 years. Originally, prior to COVID, that plan was going to be 10 years long. And really, MSDE and the AIB decided that they needed to back off of that and make it a 2-year plan. So right now, we are working on a 2-year plan that'll be due on March 15th, and it will be posted on our website. And again, we'll talk more about that towards the end of our presentation. But right now, that's what we're working on finishing up. We're in the last phase of that. We have had pillar teams. We've had a lot of work groups working on that. Some of you who have registered for our call tonight, I know have been part of those work groups. So we wanted to share with you the structure of how we've worked on that. So again, pillar 1 has been the pillar that I have worked on under early education. Pillar 2 has been Dr. Dwayne App, and he's had a pillar group working with him. Pillar 3 is Dr. Annette Wallace. Pillar 4 is Lauren Williams, and Pillar 5 is our CFO, Vince Tolbert. But you can see that that's not the only work that's going on. We had a steering committee that was working above all of this. And what we would do is, as our pillar teams would be working on parts of the implementation plan, we would take our work to our steering committee and vet our work to them. So as we would be working on responses to our implementation plan, our steering committee would vet those responses and give us feedback to those responses. There were 164 questions that we worked on, and those were the responses that would go to the steering committee. And you can see that you are part of that stakeholder feedback, as are our Board of Education and our partner agencies. I will also say, if you're interested in looking to see who was part of our steering committee or any of our pillar committees, those committees are also listed on our website, where the feedback forms and the scan and all of our committees are listed right there, where we have a dedicated blueprint page. So please, if you're interested to see who was part of those committees, please help yourselves to that. And now I believe if we advance the slides, we're going to start getting into the meat of the blueprint, and each of the blueprint leads are going to talk a little bit about what was addressed in the plan, through talking a little bit about what was addressed in each of the pillars. So I'm sure you're tired of hearing me talk, but since I was pillar 1, I'm going to begin by addressing what was in my pillar, and then I'll introduce each of the pillar leads as they address what was in their pillar. So pillar 1 was early childhood, and we all know the importance of early childhood. And this pillar was actually quite extraordinary, because in the past, in early childhood, we've really focused on our kindergarten students. All of our students in elementary schools really started with us for the most part at 5 years old. We do have some pre-kindergarten students that started with us at 4 years old. And in the past, we've had some 3-year-olds. But what Pillar 1 said to us is that we need to significantly expand our pre-K4 and pre-K3 programs. And if we cannot do it in our schools, then we have to partner with our private daycare providers in our enrollment areas, and ensure that they have the same high quality teachers and assistants and programs that we are offering in our school system that we have. And that really makes a lot of sense, because all of the kids that join us in kindergarten are our students. So it makes sense that if we're reaching out to them when they're in the private providers' care, that it would make sense that we want to make sure that they are in the best care that they can possibly be. So one of the things that we've done to make sure that happens is we have hired a full-time early childhood coordinator this year. In the past, we had a 3-day-a-week person, and this year we have a full-time early childhood coordinator. And one of the roles that she has is reaching out to those private providers and ensuring that they are on board and working towards the same high goals that we have in Worcester County Public Schools. And it is working out great for us. We've always had great relationships with those providers, but we're continuing to work on that. We also last year added additional pre-K 3 classrooms to our schools. So if you do not know, we have full-time sections of pre-K 3 in all of our elementary schools now. One section of all-day pre-K 3, and all of our elementary schools all have all-day pre-K 4. They have 4 sections of all-day pre-K 4. So we are growing our elementary schools to add more and expanding more in our schools and working with our private providers. And that also leads into bullet 2, supporting that. We also support who have children that may be underserved and make sure that they have the services that they need, whether it be special education, EL services, which are English language services if they speak other languages. We also have to make sure that they receive special wraparound services if needed, dental or vision. And that means only make sure that students that go to Worcester County Public Schools receive the services they need, but also reaching out to those private providers and ensuring that they receive those services. And then also we need to ensure, we feel that making sure that bullets 1, 2, and 3 happen will improve our students' readiness for kindergarten. Again, those 5-year-olds that end up being all of Worcester County Public School students. If we do bullets 1, 2, and 3, that will happen. And you will see, once you look at our plan that will be published on March 15th, you will see that all of the questions that we responded to in the implementation plan lead up to the fact that we are working more collaboratively with the private providers to ensure that all of our students, our needs are being met, whether they're in private or public schools, and that our kindergarten readiness scores are being improved. And just a little shout out to Worcester County Public Schools. We had the highest kindergarten readiness scores for the 5th straight year. And this year we are 20 points higher than the next school system. So the next school system was at 58%. So we are really doing a fine job with that. So that is pillar 1, and I'd like to advance this and introduce Dr. Dwayne App, who will go through pillar 2.
Hi, good evening, everyone. As Ms. Short said, I've been working with Pillar 2. That's the high quality and diverse teachers and leaders. And I'm going to give you an overview of what this particular pillar dives into, and I'll give you a little bit more information. A little bit of history behind this particular bill. House Bill 1300 started or became law back in 2020. 2021, there were some amendments and some changes in the bill, and it was changed again in 2022, mainly fiscal changes of how things would be funded in the blueprint itself. So for the high quality and diverse teachers and leaders, increasing the rigor of educators, licensures, and prep programs, this really, the first bullet really talks about the colleges and universities. This is things that the colleges must do in their programs to help prepare the new generation of teachers. So with these new prep programs, beginning on July the 1st, 2025, teacher prep programs, including alternative programs, must be equivalent to 1 full year of school. So back in the previously, when I was getting my license, I did a half year, basically 1 semester of student teaching, starting in July 1 of 25. Candidates will now have to do the entire school year, 180-day internship for their programs. So the traditional models, like I said, were 1 semester, and they're also going to be required to do a portfolio assessment of their teaching abilities as a graduation requirement. And all of that, again, comes to fruition in July of 2025. The next bullet, improve educator compensation and working conditions. One of the things that the blueprint has in the law is pushing what's called the NBC certification. And what is the NBC certification? Well, that is the National Board for Professional Teaching Standards, and we refer to it as NBC or NBCT. And that is a rigorous program that has been vetted nationally, and the state of Maryland has tagged that as the standard that they want our teachers to be at. So as of July 1 of this year, National Board Certified teachers that are in our school system, and right now we only have 6 National Board Certified teachers. We have a cohort of about 22 that are going through now. We have a interest meeting coming up in the next month for our next cohort. So we're going to be having cohorts for year after year after year, bringing in more NBC teachers. But as of this year, the current National Board Certified teachers by law receive $10,000 above their base pay, and that has already begun. Again, we have 6 of those teachers in Worcester County Public Schools. Between July 1, 2019 and June 30th of 24, the law states that the teachers shall receive at least a 10% salary increase above the negotiated schedule. In Worcester County, we certainly have been on track, and we will meet that goal. Between 19, 20, and this particular year, we will meet the 10% regulations by the state. And then effective July 1st, 2026, as Ms. Short said at the beginning, teacher salaries in Maryland will be at least $60,000. And we're working on ways to try to plan to get there. The legislative mandate is tough for all the LEAs around the state. And right now for Worcester County, we have a starting salary or teacher salary at $49,709. Currently, we rank 21 out of 24 in the state of Maryland in starting salaries, and we rank 7 out of 9 on the shore in starting salaries. So we've got ways to go with our starting salaries. We're exploring ways to comply with the law, which includes looking into compressing some of those salaries, working with our Teachers Association to come up with the career ladder, as well as some new professional scales. The third bullet, institute new recruitment and professional development efforts to create a more diverse educator workforce. We have been updating our recruiting plans this year to be specific of how we plan to recruit a more diverse teaching staff. We are increasing opportunities and encouraging our educational assistants to seek their teacher certification by educational coursework, and we have a reimbursement program that has been negotiated with our associations, which allows those educational assistants financial help to get their teaching certificates. And we also have some programs through the LEADS grant, which are called our Grow Your Own programs, and the Teacher Academy of Maryland, which is in our technical high school, and in most technical high schools around the state of Maryland. That is another pathway for us to tap into our students in the school system that want to be teachers, trying to get them to go into those programs to be successful teachers when they come out of high school. Going into college, they'll have a head start of what it looks like, so they'll be proficient going through college and hopefully coming back to Worcester County and helping us out. The next bullet is establish new statewide educator career ladder by July 1st, 2024. The association, when I say the association, I'm sorry, the Teachers Association and the board must have a negotiated career ladder. And that is a guiding principle for all of the counties. And here are the guiding principles for that ladder. It is progression of teachers in a manner that incentivizes teachers to stay on a teacher track rather than moving to the administrator track. So we want to keep teachers, or this bill wants to keep teachers in the classroom instead of going into administrative positions. The second guiding principle is a teacher salary that attracts new teachers to the profession. That's the $60,000 that the state has put together. A teacher salary that incentivizes existing teachers to opt onto the career ladder. Right now, we're going to have a career ladder. Right now, we have a step scale. In 2024, we'll have a career ladder as well. So we'll have two scales going. And the way the legislation is written is the state wants folks to come off of the step scale and go into the career ladder. And the career ladder by
Dr. App, I hate to interrupt you, but I think you muted yourself, sir.
Okay. Are we back?
You are good. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you. The last guiding principle is for the blueprint is the teacher salary progression as performance increases and demonstrated by teachers achieving national boards. So this is a scale of performance, not a scale of experience. So that's what the career ladder looks like. It has 4 levels, and the first level is a state certified teacher, which would be the $60,000 starting spot. A level 2 is a teacher pursuing their national board certification or their master's degree. That would be the second step of the ladder. The third step of the ladder is where the national board's teachers and the assistant principals will be slotted on that scale, or excuse me, on that ladder. And then level 4 will be for our principals and our teacher leadership folks. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about was how to implement more comprehensive in-service educator training and professional development, meaning reallocation of teaching time for lead teachers and assistant principals. Beginning on July 1st, 2025, the percentage of the percentage of time a teacher on the career ladder spends in the classroom will be reduced over an 8-year period to 60%. So teachers on the career ladder over an 8-year period, teachers are going to be expected to teach in the classroom for 60% of their workday. And the other 40% of their day will be improving their own instruction, identifying, working with, and tutoring students who need additional help, working with the most challenging students, working with students living in concentration of poverty, and leading or participating in professional development. And the one interesting piece about the reallocation of time in this particular law, principals are encouraged to teach 10% of their day, and assistant principals are mandated to teach 20% of their workday, which equals about 84 minutes. So there you have a little bit of what Pillar 2 is mandating us, and what we're working on here in Worcester County to try to build and prepare for as the blueprint steams down the road. So well, back to you, Ms. Shorts.
Thank you, Dr. App. And again, once you see our implementation plan, which will be posted on our website on March 15th, you will see how the implementation questions that Dr. App and his pillar team have responded to all lead into, at least partially into, the work towards making that happen. So thank you so much, Dr. App. And now I would like to introduce Dr. Annette Wallace, who is beginning the work on Pillar 3, and she will go through Pillar 3 college and career readiness pathways. Dr. Wallace?
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. I see that we have about 40 attendees. So we're happy to have all of you here with us this evening, learning more about our blueprint at the end of, I'm sure, your long work day. But we did want to schedule this so that our parents could attend. So here we are. Pillar 3 is my pillar, and it is around college and career readiness. And so you can see there's a few bullets there, and I am just briefly going to describe each of those pillars and give you just a little bit more information. So the college and career readiness pillar goal is that every student leaves us prepared for college and career. And that as students move along this trajectory, they are prepared by the time they leave 12th grade to enter the workforce or enter a college or a specified trade program to continue to hone their trade skills. And as we move back, you can see, though, that it speaks to the pre-K through 12. And so when we speak to those areas, Ms. Shorts already mentioned our kindergarten readiness assessment. Then we have DIBELS assessments where we follow our students. And so we have many checkpoints along the way, checkpoints in 3rd grade, and then checkpoints along the way with our MCAP scores along the way, again, in 6th grade and 8th grade. Then when we get to 9th grade, we look at how many credits students have, and we, if they are on track to graduate. And the good part about this is that we've already started looking at our data, even prior to this specific plan being turned in. And we do see a great alignment, which is proof that the research makes sense, a great alignment between our number of students who are on track for graduation in 9th grade and our graduation rates. We can see that direct correlation there. And so we're really keeping track of students in this pillar, even though it seems like it's a high school pillar. It's as much about all of those steps leading up to high school as it is the specific things that we do in high school. And you can see that second bullet talks about those instructional systems and resources and supports to keep that student on track along the way. And then talking about achieving reading proficiency by the end of grade 3. I've sort of looked through our participants, and many of you are educators, some in our school system. Some of you I know are retired educators. So you're probably familiar with the research around achieving reading proficiency by the end of grade 3, and that in this country in the past, they have built prisons based on the information of how many students in that certain area are not proficient in reading by grade 3. And so we really want to make sure, and that doesn't mean if you can't read, that you'll end up in prison, but it means that that's one of those indicators that we look at that says, oh, this student needs a little bit more help along the way. Let's make sure that they can get there, because, I was a math teacher and I love math, and math is my favorite. However, my reading skills, my critical reading skills, my ability to read something, synthesize it, and give an answer is probably the skill set that I use throughout probably almost every bit of my workday. So we know the importance of early literacy, and we know the importance of reading proficiency. The next bullet talks about a statewide framework for rigorous CTE programs. This also includes apprenticeship programs. So the good part about Worcester County Public Schools, and specifically this pillar that I am leading with the help of a wonderful group, a wonderful team, is that in portions of our school district, we already have a lot of these different pieces. As far as our rigorous CTE programs, we have an excellent history in Worcester County Public Schools of having students graduate with a CTE skill that they can go directly out into the workforce. And that is as valuable as a student going to college. So we're ahead of the curve really when it comes to CTE programs. Apprenticeships are something that are really new to Worcester County Public Schools. And I don't see Diane Stoltz. Oh, she is on this call. So Diane and I had a conversation probably 2 years ago. And I was like, Diane, I really want us to get these apprenticeship programs. I was at a meeting and we didn't have any. And you know, this is something that's important to me. So Diane and Stoltz and Brian Phillips have worked together, who are two of our coordinators, and have really built out our apprenticeship program very quickly. And I do know that I did notice there are just a couple community members who've joined us who aren't on our SIACs tonight as far as community participation. And, you know, I think it's important to point out as we look at this that we don't want to miss out on the military either, because we're talking about apprenticeships, we're talking about CTE programs, we're talking about college, but the military is also very important to our community and certainly to our country. And the military is captured through the CTE programs. At this point, it is a CTE completer to do our junior ROTC programs. And we have the naval program at Stephen Decatur High School. And then we have the Marine junior ROTC at Snow Hill and Pocomoke High School. Also an interesting thing for those couple community members who are here and our educators as well, is that one of the huge benefits in circling back to the apprenticeship is that many of our trades programs are very expensive. You can, if you are in the workforce in a trade, you know how expensive the tools can be. You know how expensive creating simulations for those trades can be and practicing those skills. So one of the really great benefits of apprenticeship, not even that it's putting money in our kids' pockets, because that's certainly a great piece of this, is our students are attending high school in an apprenticeship and they're getting paid doing something that they love, but also that paycheck doesn't have to come out of Worcester County Public Schools to fund the equipment that's needed for those additional CTE programs. And a very expensive program, which we don't have in Worcester County Public Schools, but we address now through an apprenticeship program. Big kudos to Diane Stoltz and Brian Phillips, is Seaside Plumbing. We have an apprenticeship program with them. That means we don't need any plumbing equipment, and it means we don't need to create any scenarios with plumbing, because that can be very expensive. So all of those things are covered, as well as our students get paid. So we're very excited about that. And then you can see that last bullet there talks about pathways for students who are college and career ready. This legislation requires that Worcester County Public Schools fund dual enrollment programs, AP programs, and CTE programs for all of our students who are college and career ready. Now, the trick there is that we have to provide funding for students who are college and career ready to enter those programs. But if our students aren't college and career ready, they also need access to those same programs. But at this point, the law does not require us to cover that. So as you can imagine, that is a huge equalizer. Because certainly I am, up to an AA degree is one of the pathways that we're required to have. And certainly for my middle class family, I would have loved the idea, and I'm sure my parents would, of me earning an AA degree in high school, but we just couldn't have afforded that. So these pathways are going to open doors for students, and much of this work is the work that I'm proud to say we are already doing in Worcester County Public Schools. So certainly we're taking and expanding on areas that we see we can improve upon, because we don't rest on our laurels. So, but it's exciting to see, and a couple of folks are on this call, some work that we started in Worcester County Public Schools about 6 years ago. And we were on a call and we were like, this is stuff that we did 10 years ago. And we said, this is a great idea. So very exciting work, comes with a lot of challenges, but exciting nonetheless for our students. And I think it's going to make our community stronger as well. So I'm going to pass the baton back to Ms. Shorts.
Thank you, Dr. Wallace. Before we move on to pillar 4, we have noticed that there are some questions being put in the question and chat box. And although we do appreciate your questions, if you please use the feedback form, either through scanning the scan form or the HTTPS, we would appreciate it. We will be responding that way. We do very much appreciate your questions, but we're asking you to use the feedback form. Thank you so very much. And with that, we're going to move on to pillar 4 and ask that Lauren Williams join us to walk us through pillar 4. And before we do that, I just want to thank Dr. Wallace. I think I said at the very beginning of our work tonight that the implementation plan was 164 questions. Out of that, pillar 3 was 87 questions. So when you look at the work on March 15th that we post on our website, the work around pillar 3 this go around for the next 2 years, what a big chunk of it was pillar 3. And when you look at the steering committee that worked around this and the pillar 3 group, they had a big chunk of the work. So thank you so much, Dr. Wallace. And not to slight any of the other pillars, but there was a big chunk of work done. So thank you, Dr. Wallace, and welcome Lauren Williams. And we look forward to hearing about pillar 4.
Thank you, Ms. Shorts. Good evening, everyone. I am Lauren Williams. I'm our coordinator of school health and mental health, and I was honored to be able to do this work with pillar 4, which is about more resources to ensure that all students are successful. Our pillar 4 team, which consisted of course, our internal folks from Worcester County Public Schools, but then also some community partners in areas of behavioral health and physical health. We're really able to capture what some of the gaps are and then start to work on identifying some plans to fill those gaps. And so the first bullet I'll talk about here is about more supports for students who are specifically English language learners, as well as special education students. So our English language learners don't make up a large percentage of our population. However, our programs are very robust, and Miss Angela Paris was integral with our answers for pillar 4 around English language learners, and we really worked in both our English language learner answers and our special education answers to not only capture the great work that's happening here, but also set some aspirational goals to think about, even though we're doing a fantastic job, where we can move things forward, where we can think to the future. And that's one of the great things about the blueprint, is it really asks us to think, to think forward and think about where, we could set some higher goals or higher bars, even though we're already doing a great job in those areas. So the English language learners and the special education programs, making sure that we're spending those dollars that we receive specifically on those areas, and making sure they're going directly to those students is also another important piece of the answers in pillar 4. We also got the opportunity through this work to receive concentration of poverty grants for several of our schools. Concentration of poverty is defined as a school in which the families, at least 70% or more of those families, are living below poverty rate. So that means basically we identify that based on those who qualify for farms, free and reduced meals. So at least 70% of the families in the concentration of poverty schools are living, below that poverty line. And so we have 3 schools that have qualified. We have Pocomoke Elementary School, Pocomoke Middle School, and Cedar Chapel Special School. And we really, we've known for a long time that when students don't have their basic needs met, if they're struggling with food insecurity or housing insecurity or, childcare needs or, all of those basic needs, that it's very difficult for them to be successful in the classroom. And so these concentration of poverty grants give us the opportunity to provide additional resources in terms of, we have community school liaisons that will work with those students and families as case managers to help connect them to resources that are necessary to be successful, and also additional wraparound services. So in those schools, this is our first year receiving those grants. We've already created some really wonderful partnerships that would not have been possible without the funds that are provided through the Blueprint through concentration of poverty. So, our goal is to make sure that our students that are living in poverty are able to access the same services, the same, treatment, the same, high quality care that anyone, with regardless of their income, that they will be able to access those same services. And we have already started doing a lot of great work there. So I will also say that we are looking in the Blueprint answers to expand our access for behavioral health services. So we know that mental health is a crisis, not only in our community, but throughout the country, that there is a shortage of mental health care providers, and that there is a greater need for mental health care probably than ever before. And so we really worked particularly with our community partners to identify where there were some gaps and where we could look at enhancing our workforce, enhancing our partnerships again, to be able to provide behavioral health services to our students. And one of the areas that we have focused on is in this area is having school social workers in our schools. And so through the Blueprint, to meet these goals, we do look to add additional school social workers and also school counselors so that our tier 1 services are that, all of our students are able to have a strong foundation for their ability to problem solve, their ability to deal with frustration. And then, of course, when bigger challenges come along, that they have that support system where they, have somebody that they can talk through if they need, true therapy or other things of that nature. So the Pillar 4 really does a lot of things that I'm very passionate about in terms of increasing the access and creating those partnerships, and really grateful to have been able to work on this. So I think that's all I have for Pillar 4. Thank you, Ms. Shorts.
Thank you, Lauren. And again, I encourage you to read through Pillar 4 on March 15th, excuse me, when we post it on our website. And now we are going to turn it over to our Pillar 5 lead, Vince Tolbert, who will talk briefly about our governance and accountability pillar, and briefly about the AIB and what we're doing with Pillar 5. Vince?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Schwartz. Good evening, everyone. I'm Mr. Tolbert. I'm Chief Financial Officer here at Worcester County Public Schools, and I'm the Pillar 5 lead. Pillar 5 is governance and accountability. I just want to highlight the different highlights that are included in Pillar 5. The first one is to establish the Accountability and Implementation Board, or the AIB, to oversee and monitor state and local agencies' progress in implementing the Blueprint policies, to develop state and local Blueprint implementation plans, to create expert review teams to visit schools and make recommendations for improving student achievement, and to require school systems to demonstrate that at least 75% of the per student formula funding follows the students to their schools. But just some of the things that you're going to see when you look at our plan in Pillar 5 is they're asking questions about who was on our team that was responsible for developing our plan, making sure that we included both teacher and principal voice in our plan development, making sure that we receive community and stakeholder involvement, which is what we're doing tonight, and making sure that Blueprint funds are spent as intended. That's a big intention of the Blueprint, is to make sure that the dollars that are dedicated to each student follows that student to the school level. And that's a big part of the Blueprint. As Ms. Short said, Dr. Wallace had the largest portion of the Blueprint. Pillar 5 is the smallest with only 7 questions. I do believe they're important questions, and I do believe that's going to grow as we go into the second version of the plan in 2 years. So I'll turn it back to you, Ms. Schwartz.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Tolbert. And I do agree with that. I do think the plan will shift after 2 years. And I anticipate, although no one has said this, that next year we'll have to do some type of monitoring plan as to how well we're doing in implementing what we wrote about this first year. I'm anticipating that happening, but again, I have no crystal ball. I'm just guessing that we won't get off without doing something around our implementation plan. So again, that is what we've been working on in Worcester County Public Schools around the blueprint for Maryland's future since December of 2022. In looking back, it has been a very short time that we've been working on the plans. I do encourage you to, if you haven't already scanned that QR code there or gone to the feedback form, to please do so. We would like your feedback. We are anxious to finish up our plan. We are in the very final stages of, in fact, all of the pillar teams need to have their final edits to myself and my administrative secretary by Sunday evening, so that we can fit it into the template and send it off by 5 p.m. on next Wednesday. So we're looking forward to doing that. And at that time, we will post it on our website for you all to take a peek at. Again, we're looking forward to feedback from the state. Our understanding at that time is that there's success criteria, as we said, that they'll be reviewing the plan. So you could either meet, partially meet, or not meet different questions throughout the plan. And so there will be opportunities for Worcester County and all 24 districts in Maryland to make revisions of their plan and resubmit. So we could absolutely have to make revisions and resubmit. And you will also be seeing those revisions. So if we are areas, we will also be posting that to our website. You will see those areas that we did not meet or partially met. So we will be very transparent throughout this process and let you see all of that. We are also hoping very much to share those pieces with you throughout this process. Our understanding is that sometime by July, we should know where we are. So the AIB and MSDE will review those plans and let us know by then how we do. So, and we'll have an opportunity again to resubmit. So please scan that in. Let us know your feedback. If we want to go ahead and advance to the next slide. We just wanted to give you a little snapshot of, again, we keep referring to our website and the additional resources, but we do have a part of our Worcester County Public Schools website dedicated to the blueprint. You can see who are on our pillar teams, who are on our steering committee, and who have contributed to this plan and provided feedback so far. And again, we would love your feedback. And I know Brian just put that again in the chat. And again, if you put questions in our chat so far, please transfer that to our feedback form. We'd love to hear from you. So with that, we have taken an hour of your time tonight, and we thank you so very much from the bottom of our hearts for joining us tonight. And we look forward to reading through your feedback and look forward to posting our final plan next Wednesday. So thank you and enjoy the rest of your evening.